Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories.
The day began like any other, with the Texas sun already blazing down on the neighborhood, casting long shadows and promising another sweltering day. I stood on my porch, sipping my morning coffee, and glanced at my driveway where my trusty pickup and trailer sat. They were loaded with my ag drone and mixing equipment, ready for an early job the next day. Running an agricultural drone business means early starts, and having my gear close by is crucial. My house, nestled in one of the neighborhood's cul-de-sacs, was the perfect spot for this setup. I had no idea that the day would take such an unexpected turn. Our neighborhood is fairly new, and like many such places, it came with an HOA. Now, I've never been a fan of HOAs. They always seem to find a way to meddle in things that don't need meddling. But I digress. The HOA board had decided to host a community building event, and for reasons beyond my understanding, they picked our cul-de-sac as the perfect location. Around mid-morning, as I was tinkering with some equipment in the garage, I heard a knock on the door. It was one of the board members, a middle-aged man with a clipboard and a forced smile. He wore a polo shirt with the HOA logo embroidered on it and had the kind of demeanor that suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. "Good morning," he chirped, trying to sound cheerful. His voice had that overly enthusiastic tone that people use when they're about to ask for a favor. He was a middle-aged man, dressed neatly in a polo shirt that bore the HOA logo, and he clutched a clipboard tightly as if it were a lifeline. His eyes darted around briefly before settling on me, and I could sense a hint of nervousness behind his smile. "Good morning," I replied, curious about the unexpected visit. "What can I do for you today?" He cleared his throat, shifting his weight slightly from one foot to the other. "I'm here to talk to you about the community event we're hosting today," he said, his eyes brightening as he spoke. "We're really excited about it and hoping to get everyone involved." I nodded, intrigued but cautious. "Oh, I heard something about that. What's the event about?" His face lit up with enthusiasm. "It's all about bringing the neighborhood together, you know. We've got some fun activities planned, and it should be a great opportunity for everyone to meet and mingle." I leaned against the doorframe, trying to gauge his intentions. "Sounds interesting. What kind of activities are you planning?" He glanced down at his clipboard, flipping through a couple of pages. "Well, we've got a little bit of everything. Games for the kids, a bake sale, and even some live music. We're really trying to make it a memorable day for everyone." "That sounds like a lot of fun," I replied, still wondering why he was at my doorstep. "Is there something specific you need from me?" He hesitated for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "Well, we're just going around making sure everyone's aware and seeing if there's anything we can do to help folks participate." I raised an eyebrow, sensing there might be more to his visit. "I appreciate you letting me know, but I heard about it. Is there anything else?" "Well," he began, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, "we were wondering if you could move your trailer to make room for parking. We're expecting a lot of people, and your driveway would be perfect." I was taken aback. Why would anyone need to drive here? The neighborhood is small enough to walk from one end to the other. Besides, I have an early job tomorrow, and moving my trailer to the barn, which is an hour away, just isn't feasible. He hesitated, as if choosing his next words carefully. "I understand, but it's Texas in the summer. Some people might not want to walk in the heat. And, well, your trailer is a bit of an eyesore. It's not the image we want for the event." I felt my patience wearing thin. "An eyesore? It's a trailer, just like the 4 food trailers parked on the street." "What's the difference?" He cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Those are part of the event. We're just trying to make a good impression. You know." I shook my head, incredulous. "I'm not moving my truck and trailer. They're on my property, not obstructing anyone. I'm sorry, but that's my final word." The board member's smile faltered, but he nodded. "All right, I understand. Thank you for your time." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving me to wonder if that was the end of it. A few hours later, as the event was kicking off, I heard the unmistakable rumble of a tow truck. I rushed outside to find it backing into my driveway, preparing to tow my pickup. My heart raced as I ran toward the driver, who was already hooking up my truck. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" I shouted, trying to keep my composure. The driver, a burly man with a scruffy beard, glanced at me briefly. "Got a call to tow this truck." "Just doing my job." I couldn't believe it. "This is my property. My truck is entirely on my driveway. You have no right to tow it. He shrugged, unfazed. Look, I'm just following orders. You got a problem? Take it up with the HOA. As I watched in disbelief, the tow truck began to pull my pickup away. The entire neighborhood was watching, and the HOA board members were standing by, looking smug. I was furious. I marched over to the board member who had spoken to me earlier and let him have it. "This is outrageous," I exclaimed, my voice rising. "Nothing in the bylaws prohibits parking a truck and trailer in one's driveway. You're going to be responsible for the towing costs." He held up his hands defensively. "I'm sorry, but the decision was made by the board. We didn't think it would come to this." The event quickly lost its festive atmosphere. People started leaving, and the board members were visibly scrambling to contain the situation. Throughout the afternoon, board members trickled to my house, each one attempting to smooth things over. I was having none of it. "I want my truck and equipment back by midnight, without a scratch," I demanded, standing firm. "And I want whoever authorized the tow removed from the board." The whole ordeal was infuriating. The nerve of the HOA to tow a vehicle from a private driveway because it didn't fit their aesthetic for an event was beyond comprehension. Especially when there were 4 food trailers parked on the street, identical to mine. The hypocrisy was astounding. I started seriously considering running for the board myself to prevent such power trips in the future. In the midst of all this chaos, I had to figure out how to retrieve my truck. The police were no help, dismissing it as a civil matter. And to those who suggested using a firearm, I can only shake my head. That's not how things work, even in Texas. Brandishing a gun would have landed me in jail, turning me from the victim of an illegal tow into the neighborhood lunatic. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the cul-de-sac, I was left with a simmering frustration. I needed my truck back to work the next day, and I wasn't going to let this slide. The HOA had overstepped, and I was determined to hold them accountable. But for now, I had to focus on the immediate problem: finding my truck and ensuring it was returned safely. With the event winding down, I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood to clear my head. As I strolled past the food trailers, the aroma of barbecue and fried food lingered in the air, a stark contrast to my sour mood. I couldn't help but notice the irony of it all. My trailer was deemed unsightly, yet these were perfectly acceptable. Lost in thought, I nearly bumped into Mrs. Thompson, an elderly neighbor who had lived in the area long before the new development sprang up. She was one of the few people who always had a kind word and a warm smile. "Evening, dear," she greeted me, her voice gentle and soothing. "I heard about the commotion. I'm so sorry you're going through this," I sighed, grateful for her empathy. "Thanks, Mrs. Thompson. It's been a day." "That's for sure." She nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. HOAs can be a real pain sometimes. But, you've got the support of a lot of folks around here. We're all rooting for you. Her words were balm to my frazzled nerves. "I appreciate that. I'm just trying to get my truck back and make sure this doesn't happen again." As we chatted, a few more neighbors joined us, expressing their disbelief at the HOA's actions. It was heartening to know I wasn't alone in this fight. We stood there for a while, exchanging stories and sharing a few laughs, the camaraderie lifting my spirits. Eventually, I made my way back home, the sky now a deep indigo dotted with stars. The house felt emptier without my truck in the driveway, a constant reminder of the day's events. I sat on the porch, contemplating my next move. Running for the board seemed like a daunting task, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Someone needed to stand up to the overreach and bring some common sense to the table. I mulled over the idea, weighing the pros and cons. As the night air cooled and the sounds of the neighborhood quieted down. As the clock ticked toward midnight, I received a call from the towing company. They had my truck and were willing to release it, provided I paid the fees. I was livid but knew I had little choice. I agreed to meet them, determined to get my truck back and deal with the aftermath later. Driving to the impound lot, I couldn't shake the feeling of injustice. The whole situation was absurd, and I was resolved to see it through to the end. I arrived at the lot, the harsh fluorescent lights casting an eerie glow over the rows of vehicles. The attendant, a weary-looking man with a clipboard, greeted me with a nod. "Here for the truck?" he asked, his voice gruff. "Yeah, that's mine," I replied, pointing to my pickup. He handed me a form to sign and gestured toward the payment window. "Once you settle up, you're good to go." I grudgingly paid the fees, feeling the sting of unfairness with each dollar. But as I drove my truck out of the lot, relief washed over me. At least I had it back, and I could focus on the bigger picture. Returning home, I parked my truck in the driveway, the familiar sight bringing a sense of normalcy. I knew the battle with the HOA wasn't over, but for now, I was content to have my equipment ready for the next day's work. As I lay in bed that night, exhaustion finally catching up with me, I couldn't help but think about the future. The HOA had overstepped, and it was time for a change. I drifted off to sleep, resolved to take action and make sure this kind of nonsense didn't happen again. The road ahead might be challenging, but with the support of my neighbors, I was ready to face it head-on. Call the police, report it stolen. Tow trucks should be reporting any car they tow and the reason so police can direct owners to the correct address for retrieval. Once it's reported stolen, they should be returning it free of charge. The driver got a call, and they had no reason to believe it was illegal. For all they knew, it was from the legal owner. Providing paperwork to the police and the tow company will get it released. You also have the ability to press charges against the tow company, who will point the finger at the HOA, and the person who called it in. Show up at the next HOA meeting with proxy votes from everyone in your neighborhood and call for an emergency election. I am just saying OP had his car illegally towed from his own personal residence, had his property stolen, his work equipment, and when he tried to intervene, the tow driver decided to proceed in stealing his vehicle and equipment. The only time this is acceptable is if there is a repossession order. Not to mention, I have had personal experience with this. Once I threatened the tow company that I will be calling the police because they just stole over $45,000 worth of camera equipment from my jobs company because it was in the trunk. That changed their tune. I was a school photographer at the time. It was my first job in the morning and I had to head straight to my second job. Was not prepared for my car to be missing. Once I was able to find the owner of the lot, who I paid to park there, was when my vehicle was released to me as well as the owner paying me hush money. Going straight to the police station and filing a report about missing work equipment and an illegal tow will definitely make that tow company be more than willing to compensate for their failure. It's absolutely ridiculous that an HOA can dictate what you do with your own driveway. This story highlights the absurdity of giving a small group of people so much power over individual property rights. Towing a truck from someone's private driveway just because it doesn't fit their aesthetic for a neighborhood event is a gross overreach. Who are these people to decide what looks good or bad in a community? The fact that they can enforce such arbitrary rules without any real accountability is infuriating. Homeowners should be able to use their own property as they see fit without having to worry about a bunch of busybodies with nothing better to do than impose their subjective tastes on everyone else. It's time to rethink how much authority HOAs should have before they completely overstep their bounds.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.